Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Amanda Bermudez, and I'm a Senior Vice President at Midland. I have Sasha here with me, who's going to talk in a little bit, and we're both looking forward to teaching you about self-directed IRAs. I'm going to go ahead and start out, and I'm going to talk a bit about Midland and self-directed IRAs. Then we're going to transition into talking about retirement plans and what are the important takeaways for each plan. Then I'm going to hand the mic over to Sasha, and she's going to talk to you about what types of investments you can make in your retirement plan. Just a quick note, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the questions box and we will answer them at the end. We'll also give you another reminder about this, but feel free to type in any questions and we will get to those at the end. Okay, so first let's talk a little bit more about Midland. Midland is a trust company that administers self-directed IRAs and 401ks, and we've been doing so for about 20 years. We administer personal custodial accounts, private fund custody accounts, and are a qualified intermediary of 1031 exchanges. We have offices in Chicago, Fort Myers, and South Dakota, and administer $2 billion in client assets and have over 15,000 accounts with clients all over the country. When most people think about retirement money, they think about brokerage companies that charge commissions on trades or have their fees baked into the transaction. And at Midland, we don't make commission or sell investments. What we offer is a trust account where you can choose what you want to invest in and where, and then we complete that on your behalf. We do the tax reporting for you and we maintain your account, and we do it all for a flat fee. So really the choice is yours. As I just mentioned, what you invest in is up to you and to any advisors that you may have. Midland doesn't offer advice. We don't endorse any investments. We don't research or do any due diligence on any client investments. What we're here for is to educate you on what you can and can't do in your retirement account so that you can find the assets that suit you best. So what is a self-directed IRA? Marketing-wise, right now, there are a lot of claims out there that say this account or that account is self-directed. I know even when I talk to my friends or family about what I do, they say, oh, I have a self-directed account at Vanguard. I get to choose my investments. Well, while that's in an account where they're choosing their investments, it's not a self-directed IRA. A self-directed IRA isn't a special type of IRA. It is truly an account where you can invest in anything you want that the IRS doesn't prohibit, which really are just two things: life insurance and collectibles. So long as your asset doesn't fall within those two categories, with some additional details on who you can and can't do business with, you can invest your retirement plan in any asset you wish. Now, with life insurance and collectibles being the two classifications, it's a really easy way of, hey, why can't insurance and collectibles? And the reason is because life insurance does not benefit you, it benefits your heirs. And a retirement account is intended to benefit you as the account holder. And collectibles are hard to value. So if you've ever heard me talk before, I usually give the example of Beanie Babies. I like to say how when I was growing up, people would pay thousands of dollars for a Beanie Baby. I wouldn't have paid $2 for one. So the point is in order for it to be held in a retirement account, it has to be an asset that doesn't have an intrinsic value, but has to have the ability to be appraised. So as it says on the slide, 99% of IRA custodians only hold investments that they sell. So those are the only assets that they're advertising. With Midland, we don't sell any assets. So our job is to educate you on what you can and can't buy in your retirement account and educate you so that you'll be able to determine what asset will best suit your needs. Most of our accounts are funded by clients rolling over their old 401ks. Maybe you've recently changed jobs, and so now you have access to a retirement plan, and then you can move that money over into an IRA. So now we're going to move on to talking about the different types of self-directed plans, and then we'll go into some more details. Here are the different types of accounts that you can open with Midland, And then we'll spend the next several slides going over the details of these plans. So we're going to go ahead and start with a traditional IRA. A traditional IRA is a pre-tax account that anyone with earned income can contribute to. As long as you have earned income, even if you're past RMD age, you can contribute. Because traditional IRAs are funded with pre-tax money, when you take distributions out of this account, you pay taxes on the funds as if they were earned income. For example, if you made $50,000 last year and took $10,000 in distributions from your traditional account, you would pay taxes on $60,000 of earned income when you file your taxes. One really nice thing about traditional IRAs is that you can always make a contribution to them even if you have an employer plan. So even though I have a 401k plan with Midland, I'm still eligible to make an annual contribution of $6,000 this year to a traditional IRA. And if I'm over 50, I could do $7,000. Okay, so next we have Roth IRAs. Roth IRAs are post-tax funds. So when you make a contribution to a Roth IRA, the money comes from a checking or personal savings account that you've already paid taxes on the monies. So since you've paid taxes on these funds, you don't have to pay taxes when you take the money out. There's no required minimum distribution when you're 70 and a half or 72. The age now is 72 with the new law. Since you already paid taxes on the funds when you made the contribution. The contribution limits are the exact same as the traditional, and anytime they always raise concurrently. So it's currently $6,000 that you can contribute if you're under 50 and $7,000 if you're over 50. So now let's talk a little bit about Roth versus traditional. So I just like to touch on this, but really the takeaway is there are a number of different schools of thought as to whether or not you should do a Roth or you should do a traditional, and what are the arguments for or against. And like I said before, Midland does not recommend. So there are, I can educate you on things, but we're not going to recommend anything. So in the case of a traditional, you've got tax deferred growth, which is a great benefit, while with a Roth, you have tax-free retirement income. Another good thing about a Roth is you don't have RMDs, so you don't have to take money out. So a lot of people use this for estate planning purposes. Roths also allow more flexibility with distributions, but as I mentioned at the beginning, ultimately you need to talk with your financial advisor or whoever else you turn to figure out what is best for you. So a little bit more about Roth conversions. So let's talk about this. Roth conversions, what is it? This is when you take a Roth conversion is when you take pre-tax money and you make it post-tax money. So anyone with an existing IRA can convert funds as long as you can pay taxes the following tax year. And this is really important. So if I decide to convert $50,000 of a traditional IRA into my Roth IRA, then that $50,000 gets added on top of my income for the year. So that's really significant. So larger conversions can really throw you into a higher tax bracket. So it's really important that you plan. If you don't have a tax advisor, you can definitely look up and see the different categories of what level will, bump you into another bracket. But oftentimes it's very important to really pay attention to these details when you're doing conversions, because you used to have the ability to recharacterize and kind of undo that conversion if you wanted. And now you actually can't do that. So when you do the Roth conversion and how much you do it is really important. So a few more things to think about before you convert. You'll want to, like I said, talk to your tax advisor. Do you have the money to pay the taxes? That's really important because you have to pay it. If I convert this year, I've got to pay it by next April 15th at the tax filing deadline. What is your tax bracket now versus what is your tax bracket going to be in retirement? What is your investment appreciation? What impact is this going to have on your tax return? So all of those are important things to consider. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about contribution limits for traditional and Roth IRAs. I mentioned this before, the dollar amounts, but I didn't have it on a slide. So the contribution limits are $6,000 if you're under 50, $7,000 if you're over 50. So in order to contribute, you have to have earned income. For me, it's a whole lot easier to remember what is not considered earned. So then you know that what everything else is earned. So income that is not earned would be Social Security, pensions, dividends, and child support. So all of those are not considered earned income. So everything else would be, right? Wages, commissions, alimony, things like that. Next, we've got a SEP IRA. So a SEP IRA stands for Simplified Employer Pension, and a SEP IRA is an employer plan. It allows you to contribute up to 25% of your earned income with a maximum contribution limit of $57,000 per year. So this is a plan where you can contribute a lot of money each year, but because it's an employer plan, the contribution is fully funded by the employer. So it is really only a plan that works if you're self-employed and maybe you're self-employed and have a spouse, or you're self-employed and you have one employee. I like to joke that this plan is only for family businesses or if you love your employee, because what employer is going to fund their employee's retirement plan with a fully employer paid contribution on an additional 25% of their employee's income? So really great plan for if it's if it's just you or you and a spouse, or sometimes it will be you'll have a doctor's office and just one assistant, or a legal office, something like that is where you see those plans. So here's another way to look at the SEP contribution limits. So I know I talked about how you can do 25% of your income, and the max is 57,000. So you actually need to go with the lesser of the two. So this is a really great visual so you can kind of see that. Okay, we're just trucking right along. Next, we have simple IRAs. So simple IRAs are lesser known than other accounts, but still a great option for small businesses. You have to have less than 100 employees. They're a great plan option where let's say you're a smaller business, you might be getting more towards medium size, but you don't want to do a full-blown 401k because then you have to deal with plan testing and all sorts of other things. And 401ks are much more costly to administer. In the case of a simple, it's great because there's no plan testing. The plan is heavily funded by the employee, and the employer is matching up to 3%. So a simple IRA is essentially treated as a traditional IRA, and that contributions are made pre-tax, and the distribution rules are the same as a traditional, where you need to start taking distributions at 70 and a half, or now the age is 72. Okay, finally, we have individual 401k plans, which are also called solo K plans. So this is a great option if you're self-employed and you have no employees other than your spouse. It's a great plan because you can contribute a lot of money a year. Again, you can get up to 57,000. So you can do 19,500 as the employer. I'm sorry, as the employee, and $6,500 additionally if you're over 50 as the employee. And then you've got a 25% match as the employer on the employer side for a max of 57,000. So you can really put in a lot of money in this account on an annual basis, and you can see a great deal of tax savings. So the advantages of a 401k, I think the biggest takeaway for this is I'm really just giving a high level, quick few benefits. But if you are self-employed, it's probably a good idea to give our office a call, and we're happy to go into much more details. These are awesome plans, and I'm really just going to go over a few things. So one advantage is that you're the trustee and the administrator, so you're going to get to sign all your investment documents. As I already mentioned in the last slide, you can put away a lot of money, especially if you're a high earner. If your adjusted gross income is high, you can still put away a lot. Another benefit is you can take a loan on the plan for up to 50% of the value of your account with a cap of $50,000. Finally, depending on what you're investing in, this last thing could be really, really great for you. This UDFI and UBIT taxes don't apply on leveraged assets. So UDFI is unrelated debt financed income. And so this is a tax that's charged if you have a loan on a property and it sells, you have to pay taxes on the leveraged portion. If you own a property, in an individual 401k, you do not have to pay this tax. Now, if you owned a leveraged property in an IRA, you would have to pay the tax. So it's a big advantage. And the same time is UBIT. So unrelated business income tax or taxable income, you see people say it different ways. But if you run an operating business in your IRA, there's a tax that applies or that can apply on an annual basis that you file that on Form 990T. And if you own the business in an individual 401k, you do not have to worry about it. So that's another great thing where if you owned the business in an IRA, you would be paying that tax. Okay, so other plans that are available for self-direction. So you can self-direct an ESA account. So an ESA, it's an education savings account for your child's higher education. The money you put in is taxed, but the earnings are not taxed as long as the funds are withdrawn to pay for education expenses. So the contribution limit is $2,000 a year. This is a plan where we don't see a ton of these, but we do have some of these accounts. But when we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about HSAs. And so let's transition to that. HSAs are something we do see a little more of just simply because the contribution limits are higher. ESAs are a great option, but because the contribution limit is so low, it's hard to get enough money in the account to really make a difference to be able to self-direct it. But you can actually also self-direct your HSA, which is really cool. It's the only type of savings plan that has 3 tax advantages. So you get a deduction for contributions, tax-free earnings, and tax-free withdrawals, assuming that you're making the withdrawals to pay for medical expenses. So you can contribute $3,500 as an individual, $7,000 if you're a family, and then you've got $1,000 catch up if you're over 55. So the caveat to this plan is you have to have a high deductible insurance plan in place in order to be able to use this to self-direct it. So you've got to have the higher deductible plan. But really another great option with 3 tax advantages. All right, so which retirement plan is best? So this is really just a chart that shows all the different retirement plans and what are the contribution limits? Are the contributions taxed? What about withdrawals? Do you accept rollovers? And who is this plan best for? So this is more just something to review on your own. I think really the important takeaway is to think, am I self-employed? If I'm not self-employed, okay, I have the options of traditional and Roth. If I am self-employed, okay, what can I look at? I can look at the SEP, or probably the individual 401k, possibly the simple. So those are just something you can look at on your own time. The same with the advantages. So I know we talked a little bit about what are the advantages, of a self-directed IRA versus banks and brokerage. So you can see that here. So really, banks and brokerage companies, you're limited to what they sell. And the advantage with Midland is that we don't sell anything. So we just provide this open trust account for you, and then you invest in what you know best. From an administrative fee standpoint, a lot of times, we'll have clients that will tell us, oh, I don't get charged in my brokerage account. Well, yes, you do. So the fees are often hidden. Inside purchasing fees, you don't realize that you're being charged, and those are actually baked in. With us, we just charge a flat administrative fee regardless of the value of your asset. So we're just charging you for the work that we're doing, which is handling that tax reporting. And then the last benefit is true diversification. So especially, with economically everything that's going on, self-direction is an option to diversify your portfolio. So be able to invest in what you know. If you're an expert in real estate, we have clients investing in real estate. If you're great with syndications, we have a lot of clients that will do that. So really, I think that's the exciting thing for most people is if you're great at something and you know it personally, it could be a good option for you to look at to do inside a retirement plan. And now I'm going to transition this over to Sasha, and she's going to talk to you more about self-directed IRA investment choices and what you can invest in.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sasha. I'm a senior associate at Midland, and as Amanda has said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the investment choices. Now, I've been managing the chat while Amanda is presenting, and I've seen a couple of questions come in through the chat feature. I just want to remind you to please put your questions into the questions box so that we don't miss anyone. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. Here's just a quick overview, the slide that you're looking at for the self-directed investment choices. Just want to point out the difference between Midland and other types of custodians. Self-directed just means you get to choose your investments. So maybe you've heard, oh yeah, I have, and Amanda touched on this, oh, I have a self-directed account elsewhere, and you can maybe choose which stocks to invest in. But what sets us apart is we allow alternative investments. And probably one of the more popular, which I happen to specialize in, is real estate. And we're going to get into more detail about each one of these. Also, promissory notes, LLCs, so membership or shares into an LLC, private placements and private stock, precious metals, foreign currency, and futures trading. So let's get into it. Okay, real estate. So all types of real estate qualify. Single family, multi-unit, condos, commercial, it can be raw land. So there's not any limitation on the type of real estate that can be owned by a self-directed retirement account. There are some important rules to follow. Mainly is the title to the asset. So it needs to be in the name of the IRA custodian. It can also take title in an LLC and joint venture. The point is that it needs to be properly titled. Here's an example. So when you have an account with Midland, it would be titled to Midland Trust Company as custodian FBO. That means for benefit of your name and your IRA account number. Percentage of ownership is important. So it can be 100% owned by the IRA or just a percentage. You can do tenants in common. You can partner with your IRA and do any split, 80-20, 50-50, 60-40. It's just very important that at the start of the purchase, those percentages are designated. This is so important because if you're going to partner with your IRA or anyone else is going to, all expenses and all income have to be handled pro rata. Okay. No personal use. So if your retirement plan owns the property, you cannot use it, not even for vacation use. You cannot rent to your children or to your mother, and we will get into who prohibited parties are. So no personal use on those properties. It has to be for investment purposes only. So you know, if you're going to buy the property, if it's a rental, you're generating rental income. If it's vacant land, you might be improving it or just holding on to it in hopes that it goes up in value. Income and expenses, it all has to be related according to ownership. So like I mentioned earlier, if the IRA is 100% the owner, then all of the income, so rent checks would be made payable to the IRA. Now, Midland, we have an online portal, and we offer a payment portal to tenants. So tenants can pay their rent online, or they can obviously mail us a check. And bill payments need to be done through the IRA. So there should be a cash reserve in your account, and you can log onto your client portal and request a bill payment. So we'll make a payment to the, let's say you have a tax bill. You just tell us how much it is, tell us, what county it's through, give us an address, and we'll send it out usually within a day or two. So this last part, no prohibited parties, we are going to go into who exactly those parties are. So here's a great visual. If you start in the center there, the IRA holder, that green circle, so that's you if you're the account holder. And so if you'll notice, a lot of times you might hear, oh, you can't work with family, or you can't invest with family in your IRA. That's not entirely true, actually. So if you take yourself and you look at it like a family tree, and you look at the ascending family, or the family going up, and then descending family going down, that straight vertical line are the people that are prohibited. So you start with yourself and you branch out to your spouse. And then if you go up, it's your parents and your grandparents. These are folks that you cannot buy to, sell from, lend money to. Your IRA can't borrow money from. So they're prohibited from transacting with your IRA. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't partner with your IRA. And I'd be glad to, after the presentation, if you have a scenario you want to, run by me, I'd be glad to answer those questions. So, but these are people you cannot transact with, buying and selling with. And then you go down, your children, your grandchildren, and any of their spouses. So if you were to branch out like horizontally on your family tree, if you will, you'll notice that actually your brothers, your sisters, so siblings, aunts, uncles, nieces, cousins, those are all allowable parties. So it's not that you can't invest with family, it's that you can't invest a certain way with certain family members. All right, so ways to purchase real estate, cash purchase. So you open an IRA at Midland, you transfer the money over, we get the paperwork, and we will send the money to the title company. It's a cash purchase. So when you identify a property, especially down here in Florida, the real estate market's very competitive, and being a cash buyer usually puts you at the top of the pile. So, you put the name of the contract into your IRA. If you get that approved, then, boom, you make your cash purchase, assuming you have a balance large enough to do so. You can partner. So you can still do cash purchase and partner. Just the IRA puts up its part and the other party puts up the other part. But partnering as in maybe more of like an institutional relationship. So you can go through a multi-member LLC or joint venture. And so the LLC or joint venture would take title. There is checkbook control LLC. This option is for someone who is experienced in hands-on investing. This option is available to anyone with a self-directed IRA. It requires an LLC, not an existing LLC, but a new LLC, and we are actually going to go into more detail on this. So what I'll say for this part of the presentation is, with the LLC established for your IRA, you would take title in the name of the LLC. The IRA is the sole member, and you would be the manager, and you would have control over the writing checks. I will say that checkbook control is very useful if you're going to do auction properties, because then you have the checkbook in hand. We try to be really quick on our turnaround, and we've done it. We've been able to administer auction purchases for clients, and we've done an amazing job, but the checkbook control really helps and takes it up another level. And then your IRA can borrow money to purchase real estate in the form of a non-recourse loan. Okay, so non-recourse just means you cannot personally guarantee the loan. And these loans do typically require a larger down payment, like 30 or 40% typically. There is a good handful of banks that will do a non-recourse loan to an IRA. So it's just like getting a mortgage for yourself. You find a bank and you give them the down payment. They go on the closing statement as the lender, et cetera. So it's all handled very similarly to getting a mortgage on your own. Now the IRA needs to have income to support making those payments. Amanda mentioned this earlier in the presentation. When you borrow money to purchase real estate, when that property sells, you may have the UDFI tax, unless, of course, you go through the 401k. And to qualify for that, just as a reminder, you need to be self-employed with no employees. All right, so moving on. All right, promissory notes. So what's good about promissory notes is it can be short term. So typically is anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Now they can certainly be extended past that, but this can be a short term commitment. You do get to avoid UBIT, the business tax, because you are putting yourself in the position as the lender. So your IRA is lending money to a third party. All of the interest is tax deferred or tax free if it's in a Roth. And interest rates, we at Midland, we will custody promissory notes that are a fair rate within state usury requirements. Typically, it's prime plus one at least. I think prime's like almost 5% right now. So, 6 to 12% is average, and it can go a little down, it can go a little up. You're allowed to be competitive um, when you're presenting yourself as a lender, but that's the typical range. Important rules when doing the promissory note. We have a vault that we hold the original pen signed promissory note unless you can identify a loan servicer. Midland will hold the original. The lender is the IRA. It's not the account holder directly. So we would see that same language. Midland Trust Company as custodian, FBO, your name and your account number is on the note as the lender. And we do require this on all investments, that the account holder reads and approves all of the documentation, and all of the interest income and principal payments do need to come to Midland. That same tenant portal can be used for note payers. So we have an online function where borrowers can pay their principal and interest payments online. So a secured promissory note is when there is a mortgage. Sometimes it is convertible, or there's shares in a company, something somewhat tangible to be considered secured. Commonly, we see the mortgage promissory notes. So it can be secured by a first or second position mortgage. These tend to be longer term, so 15 years, 30 years. Interest rates still typically 6 to 12. Usually a secured note is going to have a lower interest rate than an unsecured. You can request that the borrower pays all the costs, so the appraisal and attorney's fees, etc. Just an example here of what we would need to do a secured note. We have our purchase form for authorization. We would need a copy of the note, the mortgage. Midland does not do the recording of the mortgage, just to put that out there. The HUD or the settlement statement, hazard insurance, title insurance, and then wire instructions. So that's just, it's the note plus some of these other real estate related documents in order to support it being secured. Okay, so now we're on to the single member LLC. And the advantages of that is more control and ease of transactions. You can act quickly. Midland, we are a Monday through Friday business, and that's great for our families. But sometimes you have stuff to do on the weekend, and we're not open. So the LLC with checkbook control does give you the ability to act quickly. If you have multiple assets, so most of our accounts are asset based, And what that means is for every asset you hold, you pay an annual fee. So if you have 5 properties, that adds up. So if you looked at the LLC, we consider that one asset. And so you could have the LLC, and in the LLC, maybe have 5 properties, and they're all titled to the LLC. Well, you're only charged the annual fee for the one LLC. So it can, at some point, start saving you on administrative costs. Cuts down on the check fees. So, when you have an IRA, when you have a property, and maybe there's a lot of bills going out every month. It's a minimal $5 check fee for bill payments, but you have 20 of those every month. Maybe you've got contractors in and out of there that can add up. So the LLC can help with that too. Now, saying that, there is an expense, of course, to setting up the LLC. And if you've got only one, maybe 2 assets, it's probably not going to save you much. So I guess what I'm getting at is the LLC certainly has advantages to offer, but it may not be for everyone. So there are important rules regarding it. So this is an entity established under state laws, and it's really just an extension of the IRA. It's still meant to be used for investment purposes. Prohibited parties are still not allowed to do business through this entity. Again, you really should look at it as it's just an extension of the IRA. Sometimes these are called checkbook control LLCs. There is one member. The IRA is the sole member, and you yourself or a non-disqualified third party can be the manager. You're allowed to be the manager so long as you're not taking salary or commissions by managing the LLC. Essentially, you're just handling the checkbook and signing documents related to the investment. You will set up a bank account under the LLC name, so you can go to Fifth Third or Wells Fargo or wherever you bank, open a business checking account in the name of the LLC. You can name it whatever you like, as long as it's not already taken in your state, and you're able to manage that account from there. It does put more responsibility on the IRA holder. So there is some record keeping and accounting that you now need to do for yourself for the LLC. You should not have to file taxes, though, because it is still considered, like I said, an extension of the IRA. And so all the income would be able to, for investment purposes, flow in and out of that LLC tax deferred. Ultimately, the cash would come back to the IRA. From there, you can take your distributions, etc. Okay, next, private placements and private stock. So the private fundings is one way that LLCs or corporations and other entities can gain capital to grow their business. So, there's usually some form of subscription agreement or stock agreement. Your IRA would actually be the investor or the subscriber. And so, I know that we mentioned Midland doesn't do due diligence, but typically for these types of transactions or for these investments, we do a quick look, or we may ask for some question. We may ask for a contact so that we can reach out and get a little bit more information on the company. But ultimately, the due diligence is on you, the account holder. So, the IRA is going to have membership or is going to own shares. It may receive dividends. And so your IRA is going to be the investor in this scenario. And so typically the turnaround on these are pretty quick, a couple of business days, as long as we can get the documentation that we require. So again, that's usually like a subscription packet memorandum, and then we're able to send the funds over to the investment and and your IRA is then on their books as a member or an investor. There are important rules surrounding the private placements and private stocks. They're usually exempt from the Securities and Exchange Commission registration and reporting requirements. So they usually have a questionnaire for qualified or experienced investors who are able to assess the risks and merits. So that's usually part of that packet that you would receive. Private placements are not offered on the open market. So they're not available through your most typical IRA accounts. That's why you would want to use a self-directed account. And private placements, they might be stock in your local community bank, venture capital in a startup firm. It could be a hedge fund, a group of investors pooling capital. So we do have a team at Midland that is able to, discuss these different types of private placement, private stock arrangements. And again, it is up to you. We don't connect you to these types of investment managers, so you would have to identify the arrangement yourself and then provide the paperwork to Midland for review. All right, precious metals. So gold, platinum, silver, and palladium, they do have to meet a certain fineness requirement. You would need to identify a broker or dealer to purchase the metals from, and then the metals would actually be held not at Midland, not by you, but by a depository. So at Midland, we have an arrangement with 3 different depositories, and we request that you work with one of these 3. The reason why we don't open it up to any depository of your choice is because we found these 3 to be reliable when it comes to reporting, so that we can keep your account properly reported. So First State Depository, Delaware Depository, and then Gulf Coast Coin and Jewelry. So that is who you would be able to hold your metals with, and you do get a choice of any of the 3. Like I mentioned, there is a fineness requirement. It's like 0.99999%, and you can speak with the dealer when you're looking to purchase the metals about those fineness requirements. And so to get started on a precious metals investment, once the account is open, you have the dealer, you found the metals, there would be an invoice prepared, and we would send the money from your IRA to the dealer, and they would arrange to have it shipped to the depository. Okay, and we have finally, I think, futures trading and foreign exchange. There are, you can work with our futures and forex team who can answer more direct questions about this asset type, but there are a few ways that you can invest. You can do self-directed trading, so you can independently choose the futures or forex options. There is broker assisted training, so it's not someone within Midland. It would be with a third party that you could have assist you with making your option choices. There are managed accounts, so it lets a professional money manager do the trading for you. Or there is automated trading. So there's various sites that use robots to provide the buy and sell signals. So there's a lot of flexibility with this investment type. So you get the account funded, you identify who you want to trade through or with, and we get you set up on their platform and send the money their way. And then you can choose to, again, choose your own options, be assisted, have someone do it for you entirely, or choose to work with some type of robot. Just some important rules around that. We will administer non-traditional investments that are deemed allowable by the IRS. Being a custodian, we are allowed to make our own provisions about whether or not we will custody a investment type. So the IRS does require a independent third party to handle IRA administration and cash flow. So we've gotten that question before, why do I need you? Well, because the IRS says that you have to have someone standing in between you and your retirement account. If you're going to grow your retirement, if you're going to invest, you need to have a custodian in between. So that's who we are. We are the custodian, we are the administrator, we do the tax reporting and the record keeping for you and that account to keep you compliant with the IRS. So we must handle the flow of funds to and from the FCM or broker. So this is in regards to the futures and Forex investment. All contributions or deposits have to be sent directly to Midland. And you will provide investment direction to be sent to the IRA-owned trading account. So you get to identify who you want to work through, and you personally should never send money directly to that FCM or broker account. All withdrawals and distributions, they have to be sent directly to the IRA. So from that portal that we've talked about now a couple of times, you can request to additionally fund a brokerage account, or you can also request a withdrawal online. And you submit that through Midland and it flows through the IRA. This is to keep it out of your hands. If you do need to take money out of your account, rest assured that you can take cash out of your account at any time as long as it's liquid. If you are over the age 59 and a half, you can do so without penalty. If you have a Roth account, you do need to have the funds need to have been in any Roth account for at least 5 years to do so. There are some specifics, but just that you can request a distribution through your client portal. And but when you're taking money out of an investment, that's not considered a distribution. So like with the LLCs and with these futures Forex, the money is sent to another location for investing, and then when it comes back, that's not an investment. That's just return of the investment or the income. So just some other investments to help you think outside the box. So I think I actually saw someone ask a question about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. Currently, yes, through an LLC. We don't have, our platform does not enable you to hold a wallet directly in your IRA, so you would need to set up an LLC to then get the wallet to do the Bitcoin. Oil and gas rights, tax certificates. Tax certificates are another thing that we are asking that you use an LLC for. Structured settlements, commercial paper, convertible notes, commodities. Livestock is an option. At this time, I don't believe that we are custodying those, though. There is a lot that goes into the feeding of and the care of and of these animals, and it can get a little complicated. Timberland, you can hold that. Rights or warrants, accounts receivables, equipment leasing. Really, there's fewer things that you cannot invest in. That's collectibles, S corps, and life insurance. And I know that Amanda touched on that earlier in the presentation. So there's a lot more that you can do than what you can't. So how to start investing? If you haven't done so already, you open a self-directed IRA. Our website is midlandtrust.com. This week only, we do have a promo code where you get half off your account open fee. So when you open the account online, go to midlandtrust.com, and then you'll see open an account. You fill out the online application. It's going to ask for a promo code, and you can put in save 25 This is going to expire 3/31, so you can get half off of that account open fee. So once your account is open, you need to fund it. So you can do that by contribution. Amanda went over the contribution limits for each type of account. You can do an IRA transfer from another IRA, or you could do a rollover, so from a qualified plan into an IRA. And then it's up to you to choose your investment. And I'm sure there's going to be questions at the end, which I'm going to get to those. Again, your options are virtually limitless. So I'm opening the forum for questions. I'm going to check in. All right, I am just going to start from the beginning.
Sasha, I can read the questions out for you if you want to answer them.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so the first one is, if my Midland IRA has a membership interest in an LLC that owns real estate subject to a mortgage, does UBIT and those additional tax forms you refer to apply?
Okay.
I started from the
So
top.
if your IRA has membership interest in the LLC that owns real estate, when you say subject to a mortgage, I'm going to assume you mean that there is a mortgage. So I would need to know how many members are in the LLC. I would need to know more information to be able to properly answer that question. So the slide has my email address and phone number. So please reach out to me so I can get some more information to answer that question accurately.
All right. Can futures be traded through a self-directed Roth IRA?
Yes. So we do have a futures and forex team that knows way more about futures and forex than I do. As I mentioned, I specialize in real estate. So you're able to get set up with an IRA-owned broker account. And yes, you can trade futures through a Roth IRA. Anything you can do, in fact, anything that you can invest in that the IRS allows, you can invest in that through any of the accounts. Even like the ESA, HSA, Roth, traditional 401k, if it's allowed in one type of account, it's allowed in any type.
All right, awesome. Can you please address the Secure Act and how it relates to a traditional IRA?
Sure. So the Secure Act did bring some changes to the IRAs and other retirement plans. So mainly the way that it relates to a traditional IRA is that you can now make contributions to your IRA past the age 70 and a half. So before the Secure Act, when you reach 70 and a half, not only did your RMD or required minimum distributions begin, but your contributions ended. So now the RMD age has been extended to 72. So you're not required to take distributions until you're 72. But even beyond that, if you have earned income, which if you'll remember, I mean, typically it's W-2 wages. So it's not Social Security or alimony or anything like that, dividends. It's not rental income. That's considered passive. If it's earned income, you can continue to contribute to a traditional IRA since the Secure Act has been passed.
All right, awesome. How much does it cost to have a checkbook control LLC?
Okay, so Midland does have Island Financial Services that we partner with, and they will set up a single member LLC, usually in about a week. It just depends on the state and if they're backed up. Our fee is $6.95 plus state filing fee. So in Florida, for example, I think it's like, I don't know, $100 or something, or maybe $120. So $6.95 plus state filing. What that fee covers is the LLC setting it up. So it's getting the the entity to be state approved. It's an EIN number. It's getting it registered with the state. An operating agreement, that's the big one, the operating agreement, which is a legal document. And that is going to be fees outside of the regular Midland annual asset fee or transaction fees. On an annual basis, depending on the state, you may need to pay a filing fee on an annual basis. That's going to depend on where you live.
All right, can the unsecured note payer set up an automatic payment from their check account?
Yes. So through the payment portal, which is for tenants and note payers, they can either make one-time payments or they can set up recurring payments, yes, from their checking account.
All right. If I have an IRA, would my spouse's parents be prohibited parties?
Technically, no. So let me, if you will forgive me, I'm going to go back through the presentation. Hope I don't make anybody dizzy. Okay. So if you look at this, the prohibited parties, you see yourself and your spouse, and you go up to your parents and your grandparents as prohibited. So starting at the center again, if you go to your spouse, you're going to notice that there are not, there's nothing branching up off of the spouse. So technically, your in-laws, your parent in-laws are not prohibited. However, you need to be sure that if you're going to transact with them, that everything's at a fair market rate.
All right. Is the $5 check writing fee waived for property expenses?
So the $5 check fee does apply to our self-directed accounts for any bill payment submitted through your online portal. So it's not waived for property expenses. If you have an exorbitant amount of bill payments that need to be handled, then you might want to consider looking at the checkbook LLC. Otherwise, if you just have a tax bill and maybe like an HOA payment, every now and then, unfortunately, we don't waive those, but one way that you can at least limit the number of check fees is to consider if you do have HOA, maybe paying quarterly instead of monthly.
Does Midland hold the physical title/deed to real estate?
So the title does go in the name of Midland Trust Company, FBO, but actually the original deed and title after closing should be mailed to you.
Okay. I've purchased a piece of land with IRA money thinking that I could take it as a distribution at some point. This says only investment purposes. Does that mean I can never take possession of the property even if I pay taxes on the current value at the distribution?
Fantastic question. So it has to do with intent. You need to buy with the intent of investing. However, the excellent news is if you buy a piece of property and you hold on to it for look, liberally a year and a day, conservatively 2 years. But if you hold on to it for a certain amount of time, and of course the IRS doesn't give us an exact, but hold on to it with the intent of it being an investment property, you can distribute the piece of land at a later time. If you do that after 59 and a half, you only pay the taxes. You do pay the taxes based on the value, the current value, not what you paid for it, but what it's worth when you do the distribution. And once you do that, it's usually just a quitclaim deed from the IRA to your name. Midland will issue a 1099 and it's yours to do whatever you want with.
Which investment type or types allows deduction which results in the avoidance of self-employment tax?
I'm not familiar with self-employment tax, so I don't want to try to answer a question I'm not certain about. So I would say if you want to, let me go back to where my contact information is. If you do want to reach out with your question, that could be something that I look into, or obviously, usually if it's a tax-related question, Midland, not being a fiduciary, does usually advise you to your CPA.
What are the rules for withdrawal in a Roth IRA?
Okay, so if you have a Roth IRA, the funds need to be Roth for 5 years. What that means is if you open a Roth at Wells Fargo and you did that 3 years ago, and now you want to move it into your Midland account, After you've held it in your Midland account for 2 more years, now those Roth funds have been Roth for 5 years. So now you're eligible to distribute. The age to distribute without penalty is 59 and a half. So the two factors are being 59 and a half and having the funds for 5 years. Now, you can withdraw contributions from a Roth at any time. The 5 years do not have to apply to contributions made. So if you make a contribution and you've had the account for 5 years, you can take out that contribution penalty free.
For traditional to Roth conversions, what are the taxes, or I'm sorry, when are the taxes due? Is it next April 15th, or is it a must estimated tax? Sorry, don't understand the question. When do you do the Roth conversion taxes?
Sure. All right. So when you convert from traditional to Roth, so if you convert in 2019, it's on your 2019 taxes. So when you would file in 2020. So if you're going to do a conversion this year in 2020, if the conversion's done in 2020, the taxes are due when you file your 2020 taxes. Hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. I think it did. How is the growth in a Roth IRA taxed?
So the Roth is a after-tax account. So you make the contributions after tax, and then when you make your investments, the income is actually tax-free. So you are not taxed on the growth in the Roth IRA, which is what makes this such a powerful account option. So you're taxed on your contributions. It's an after-tax account.
If I have a self-directed IRA account and invest in real estate, can my wife's son use the house?
No, because that is your
Stepson.
well, okay, actually, thank you. Okay, technically, yes, if you haven't adopted him. So if he's your legal son, no. But if he's your stepson, it is technically allowed. You would still just want to make sure that, you know, he could not stay there for free. That would make it prohibited. So he would need to, or for some kind of insane discount, it would need to be a reasonable rate.
All right, it looks like we only have one more question left. So if you do have any other questions after this one, Sasha and Amanda's contact information are both on the screen, so feel free to reach out to them afterwards. But for the last question, does that 5-year rule apply to earnings on the original contribution in regards to a Roth IRA?
So when it comes to the Roth IRA, when the 5-year rule has to do with taking distributions. And so the rules for taking distributions from the Roth, first is contributions, then conversions, and then earnings.
All right, wonderful. All right, that looks like all of our questions for today. Special thanks to Sasha and Amanda for presenting. I thought they both did great. If you do have any questions, like I said, feel free to email Amanda or Sasha directly. We will be sending out a recording after this is over, and you'll be able to view it immediately. So everybody have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Sasha.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.